If your nickname's Sugar, you kind of have to be able to fight.
Nickname aside, he's one of the toughest men on earth.
And you truly know that there's a part of the whole scenario that's out of your control, and that's the part that you have to accept.
But his biggest challenge, it may have been the man in the mirror.
It was never about me facing the opponent in the cage. I was always facing myself.
A Hall of Fame UFC cage fighter, Sugar Rashad Evans, now on the Pulse.
You seem like a generally happy guy. Are we breaking down stereotypes of what it means to be an in quotes fighter? I feel like I should break out my announcer voice. Welcome to the Pulse, because we have got a UFC legend and a businessman joining us today. I'm happy, thrilled to be joined by Sugar Rashad Evans. Welcome, sir. How are you today?
Bill, I am great, man. I am great. Just enjoying this South Florida hot weather so far.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about, but not that long ago, you came out of a pretty significant retirement. So we got to call you current fighter still?
Well, yeah, I guess, but I'm still kind of on the retired side. I kind of just did that to kind of clean some things out of the proverbial basement, but I think I may be really done now.
Oh, really? So that was enough? You just didn't want to go out like you did before?
Yeah, I just had to get a win under my belt so I can go out with my head held high.
There's always the question, why? Like, you were a star wrestler, collegiate wrestler. Were you that guy? Like, were you the guy getting into fights, the aggressive? Like, how'd you get down this path?
I'm a very competitive person from being in wrestling. So that kind of edges the competitive drive. But when it came to fighting, it just seemed like something very natural to me, like something as if like it was like an evolution of my wrestling. It was just the next phase of it. And the first time I started to compete in the mixed martial arts, I felt the biggest challenge, which was an internal challenge, which, it challenged me in ways that no sport ever did before.
I don't think most people get it, like what that is when it is two people locked in a cage, that kind of ultimate combat. Like, help us to understand what that feels like. That's scary, adrenaline, what?
It's very scary. It's very scary, but you're overcoming yourself and you learn to face yourself. And I always tell myself, it was never about me facing the opponent in the cage. I was always facing myself. And, the opponent was just different ways that the challenge manifested and ways that I had to really challenge myself and meet that challenge in front of me. So it was always just a personal journey. And that's what I miss most about fighting, was just the personal journey that I went through on the way to get to the octagon and step into the cage, because there's been many times where I'm sitting in the back room and I'm just about to walk out and I'm looking at the audience and I'm just like feeling just all this adrenaline. I'm just like, man, I don't, what am I doing? I got to find something else better to do. But then there's the other side of me that's up for the challenge, that was just like, this is what you're called to do. And going through that whole roller coaster of emotion was really what the whole fight was about for me, just being able to conquer myself.
I trained Muay Thai for a while, never fought, never wanted to, like didn't have that same feeling that you have. But going through that, you viewed life differently. It was like, if I can get through this, there's not a lot, even the training. Like, I started seeing life in rounds. This meeting's only got like 5 rounds left. I'm all right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the most important thing about it, is the fact that, you're taking these skills that you learn from fighting and you're applying them to whatever it needs, wherever you need to in life. But you're really learning the fact that there's just a resilience, that you have to have, and a grit that you have to stomach a lot of things in life. And because I've had that experience of just having to, just grin and bear it and just really have to fight myself and fight my resolve, I've learned to stomach through a lot of situations that really give people a hard time.
You went out with a win, looked good. What were you, 41, 42 when you took the last fight?
42. Yeah, 42.
So went out with a win. Have you had a chance to process the career, fighting legends, being a legend, being in the UFC Hall of Fame, now that you're actually done?
I get a glimpse every once in a while. I got a glimpse of it once I was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. And, another glimpse once I won my last fight. But it's just more or less just kind of, an appreciation of just, from everybody around me, just like letting me know what my fight meant to them. And that's when I really truly put things in perspective, because it's one thing to go out there and fight for myself and have, the internal challenge that it brings, but it's also another thing to be able to inspire people, to be able to be that person to inspire people and give people hope in a lot of situations. For me, what was the biggest highlight of my career.
What's that like? Like, you fought legends, you beat legends. You're coming out with 20,000, 30,000 people cheering your name, but knowing you're about to go into the cage where it could go really well, or you could potentially not remember what happened. Like, what's that like, taking that walk?
It's scary. It's beyond scary, to be honest, because you don't know what's on the other side of it. And if you had the experience of having lost a few times, you know what that feels like. So you're doing anything in your power to not feel that way. But then you truly know that there's a part of the whole scenario that's out of your control, and that's the part that you have to accept. You have to make friends with the fact that you don't know what's going to happen, but being able to make friends with it, being able to just truly let go and allow yourself to just trust in your performance is where the magic truly is. And it's really where you get the biggest growth as a person, because you learn to trust yourself on another level.
I've watched some of the fights. I've watched you knock people cold, but I've also seen some of the challenging fights for you. And
Yeah.
I always wondered, in the ultimate man versus man, woman versus woman, regardless, what's that feel like?
It's the highest of the highs and lowest of the lows, and those lows can be pretty low because we spend 10 to 8 weeks training for one specific fight, and when it doesn't go your way, it's just like you threw away a whole entire season. And when you lose a fight, it's a big deal, and it hurts a lot, because as a fighter, even though it may not be true, even though you may not, people may not be thinking this about your performance, but you only feel as good as your last fight. And if you went in there and you laid an egg, then you feel like trash until you get a chance to redeem yourself. So that's why you see a lot of fighters, they lose a fight and then they'll jump right back in and try to get that win back, just because walking around with that stain of a loss, it does something to your pride. And it's hard, but that's another thing that you have to overcome in yourself, to realize that, you are not the fight. You got to be able to learn how to divorce yourself from that and still be able to allow you to perform as an athlete, but then allow you to be a person outside of that.
They were joined by UFC mixed martial arts legend Sugar Rashad Evans. He's got a great story, so let's get right back to it. One of the things I like the most about this show since we started doing it, I've had a chance to talk to professional athletes and performers and what have you. People lose track of that person side of it. And your career has evolved through the growth of social media as well also. Yeah. You're one of the best fighters on earth, and yet somebody sitting at home on social media will tell you suck.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the dynamic of it. And that's the thing that I've had to learn to really put in perspective. The fact that these people, when they say these things to me, they're not really attacking, Rashad Evans, who, my family know and love. They're attacking, Sugar Rashad Evans, or the person who they think I am that they've seen on TV. And you have to be able to wear different hats. You have to be okay with that, because you got to understand that these people don't know you truly. People used to always boo me all the time. And it wasn't until I started to accept the boos and not really care that the energy changed towards me, and that's just really what it was. Just me just being able to accept the fact that they're going to say what they're going to say, but I still got to be me.
Fighter by nature, and somebody is arguably disrespecting you. Is it ever hard to just, all right, I got to let this go. This isn't going to end well if I respond to it?
Yeah, it is. It is hard, and especially on the internet. And I've been pulled down that rabbit hole with that just insulting, crazy stuff that happens when you get the trolls and you try to rebuttal back, and then you just find yourself just getting brought down to that level that you didn't want to in the first place. So I know what's on the other end of that, and because I know what's on the other end of that, I know to not allow myself to let my ego get there. Because listen, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you read some of those comments and you just like, it hurts. You know what I'm saying? You're just like, man, because you may be having a bad day. You may be already, maybe feeling down on yourself, and then you read a comment, and then you just like, it just strikes you, and you want to respond, but there is no winning in responding. It's only a win for them if you respond. The only thing you can do is just kind of just just turn it off and just go and do something else to take your mind off it. But you know, a piece of you never forgets. Whenever you're doing something, like whenever you're training or something like that, you remember what was said about you, and it kind of acts as fuel. So you can either take it as fuel, or you can take it as something that destroys you.
People know you as the fighter. But I read that you view yourself as a pacifist. You seem like a generally happy guy. Are we breaking down stereotypes of what it means to be an in quotes fighter?
Once people really truly get to know fighters, and Ultimate Fighter did a really good job of that. But I feel like in general, a lot of fighters are a lot like me, where we're just, we're very passive in life in general, but then we learn how to just kind of channel it and put it in the area where we can best use it, which is in a fight. And because I'm always used to fighting and training and things like that, my ability to take a lot of garbage, as we say, it's really high, because I'm always using that negative energy and putting it into something positive. I'm transmuting that energy into positive energy, so it doesn't get a chance to stay with me, and because of such, I remain happy.
I don't know if it's called new anymore, but the Umbo products.
Yes.
Mushroom-based products, legal mushroom-based products. I actually have the box of stuff right here because I tried them out. But that kind of speaks to you've gone through some things where you wanted to help fighters with their stress level, with their mental health level, with depression, with all those types of things. How'd you get into something like this, and why was this so important?
I tried to fight in New York one time, and I was denied a license. And I was denied a license on the account of they found something on my MRI. On the frontal lobe, they said that I had some kind of brain injury, and they didn't know how long the injury was, so they didn't give me a license. So in order for me to get a chance to fight again, I had to get that off my record. So I had to do a series of tests, and lo and behold, through doing a series of tests and seeing a bunch of different doctors, I even went to go see the doctors from the movie Concussion in Pittsburgh. And it was determined that it was an old injury, something that I had from before. But as I was on the heels of retiring, it got me thinking about what I'm going to do, because I never foresee that happening to me. As a fighter, you never think that it's going to happen to you. You never think that you're going to have a brain injury. You never think that you're going to be in a position to be losing your cognitive function. And to me, that's the scariest thing in the world. So I was looking at ways in which I can heal my brain. And that's when I ran across functional mushrooms. And I started on a regimen with functional mushrooms. And I really noticed a difference.
But this was kind of you figuring out things that worked for you. And then when you did say, oh, all right, well, let's make this available for other people.
Yeah, because one thing that I really, truly started to understand is that as a fighter, there's so many neurological issues that we have just from being knocked out unconscious, and being hit in the head repeatedly. But more importantly, over time, you get to the point where you have these neurological issues, and that's what we call aging. So there's a big there's a big gap between what we can do neurologically speaking, medically speaking, in order to treat some of these problems. And I feel as if like mushrooms can really help in that capacity, because when it comes to neurological health, I don't think there's anything that the doctor can prescribe you that's better than taking functional mushrooms. Once you take in your body, you start to feel the difference, and it gets better and better. And it kind of surprised you because of the fact that you didn't even know some of these issues were even wrong with you.
I tried it, and the Umbo, the protein bars, they taste good, man. So we'll see what happens as we continue to go forward. It's transitioning from that, the ongoing discussion. I've read that you talked about, and even with the mushrooms, but in general, some of the mental health challenges that fighters are dealing with. That's something that is become an important topic for you. I guess you got to kind of channel the anger versus living your real life. Kind of walk us through some of those. I read something you said about John Jones and that kind of dark side that fighters have to deal with.
Yeah, like in order to do what we have to do, what we do, there's a part of us that drew us to the fight. There's a piece of us that has made us fighters in a sense. It's part of the nature of what it means to be a fighter in a sense. You have, some of that energy that can be very good and beneficial if it's channeled the right way, but at the same time, it can be harmful if it's channeled the wrong way. And we've seen that time and time again with some of the athletes get into trouble and can't seem to figure out and get out of their way with trouble because of the fact that they haven't had a chance, or not had a chance, they don't truly understand how to harness the dark side of that energy force, that allows them to fight at the highest level. And what I had to learn to do in order to really get a hold of my transition from being a fighter was I had to do a lot of self-work.
You've had feuds and what have you, but it doesn't seem like at this point in your life you're holding on to that anger or those feuds. Like, you guys, whoever, you don't still dislike each other. You've moved on. Not just John Jones, but people in general.
I really have moved on, and I truly, I truly just totally see everything differently now than I did when I was fighting and competing, and just, some of the anger and some of the things that I had towards my opponents, I just don't really even feel remotely the same anymore. Even with Rampage, one of my biggest heated rivals, him and we ended up doing a movie together. And, through doing a movie together, we ended up, becoming really close friends and really starting to understand each other and seeing the similarities in each other that we had. And, end up having a chance to share some of the stories that we went through when we fought each other. And it was just, it was just like a full circle. And you truly got to see, the beauty of the sport, and that's one of the things that I can say is the beauty of the sport, is the fact that, we fight each other, but when it comes to just having that brotherhood and camaraderie, I don't think there's another sport like fighting.
I'm in Philly, and we have a lot of violence issues right now. That seems like a message that you and other fighters could be sharing with young people regardless. Like, we were bitter rivals, we didn't like each other, but at the end of the day, everybody gets to walk away, and grow up to have the chance to kind of get over it.
I think that's a message that can be shared with so many people who just really don't really understand the fact that, forgiveness is the key. And when you forgive, you're not really, it's not about you saying, absolving that person of everything they've done for you. It's just really just releasing that hold that they have over you. Because the truth of the matter is, whenever you in a position where you feel like you need to forgive somebody or somebody's done you wrong, you're holding that energy where they can just be living their life and they haven't thought too much about it, but you're holding that energy. So when you forgive them, you're just letting that go.
You do media now. Is it ever difficult? Because now you have to talk about those guys, and you were on the other side of that before. Anybody ever like, really? You gonna talk about me like that?
All the time, and it's the most uncomfortable, weird situation. But you just got to handle it because you were on the other side, and you know how that feels. So you just gotta you got to keep it real, but you also have to keep it real with your reporting and what you're doing, because your word is everything. And when you're not authentic with your word and you're just kind of saying something to get along, then people don't want to hear that.
Advice for young people, for up and coming fighters, for people who have faced some of the challenges and successes that you've had. What's the advice you give to them?
Resilience is everything. And that resilience that you have to have is something that, as an individual, you have to tap into and really challenge yourself to really find out what brings the best out in you.
And then finally, we end the pulse to everybody with this concept of use your voice for good. I don't know if that's a charity that you work with, if that's just where your mindset is now, but how do you use your voice for good? What would you like people to do?
I love to talk about where I was and to really, unmask a lot of the stereotypes that people have about fighters, but more importantly, helping people to reach that part of themselves that is a little bit uncomfortable at times, and that's where I try to, do my good and try to, give people some tips on how they can help themselves. And through helping people, it helps me as well.
We were joking before you came on that I wonder when you got the nickname, because if your nickname's Sugar, you kind of have to be able to fight.
You have to be able to fight. Yeah. This nickname came from me by Mike Van Arsdale, my old MMA coach. And one day I was training. He's like, "Hey, Ev, you looking good. You looking sweet as sugar," because we was a big boxing fan. So he started calling me Sugar Ray. So that's where that name comes. But yeah, a name like Sugar can definitely get you in a lot of trouble.
People going to try you, and in that case, it gets them in a lot of trouble. Thank you, man. I appreciate your time. This has been fun.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just one more thing. I wanted to say, if anybody's interested, check out getumbo.com and sign up for our newsletter and just kind of see what we got going on with the whole umbo thing, with what we have coming out.
I'm a big UFC fan, and so to get the chance to talk to Rashad Evans about his success, but also his humility and his humanity, that was interesting to me. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Remember, if you want the whole interview, you can check it out every place that podcasts are available, and follow me on social media at Bill A. Fox29, shameless plug. Until next time, whenever you can, use your voice for good and have a good one.